Hey everyone, if you love stories about underdogs taking on impossible odds, hit that subscribe button on my channel right now. So here I was, standing outside the gleaming glass doors of Helix Innovations, one of the most prestigious tech companies in the country. The morning sun reflected off the towering skyscraper, making the place look even more intimidating than I'd imagined. I smoothed out my slightly wrinkled shirt, took a deep breath, and tried to calm the nervous flutter in my stomach. Today was the day I had been working toward for years, my interview for a software engineer position at Helix. But from the moment I stepped into the lobby, I could tell this wasn't going to be easy. I'd spent countless nights teaching myself to code, building projects in my small apartment, and dreaming of this moment. Unlike the polished candidates I'd seen on Helix's social media, the ones with Ivy League degrees and sleek LinkedIn profiles, I was a self-taught programmer. No fancy credentials, no referrals from high-powered connections. Just me, a laptop, and a lot of grit. Still, I believed my skills could speak louder than any diploma. But walking into the building, I was met with a subtle but unmistakable chill in the air. The receptionist barely glanced up as I approached, barely masking her impatience as she handed me a visitor's badge. "Second floor, room 213, she said without a smile. I nodded, clutching my portfolio tightly, and took the elevator up. When the doors slid open, the hallway buzzed with activity, but the people I passed all seemed to have that polished, confident air that screamed insider. I wondered if they were the kind of candidates the interviewers were expecting today. Eventually, I reached the door marked Helix Recruiting Team. I paused, took another deep breath, and knocked softly. The door swung open to reveal a small conference room where 3 people sat behind a sleek table, their expressions ranging from indifferent to mildly skeptical. One woman glanced up briefly, then went back to scrolling on her tablet. The man in the middle gave me a cursory nod but didn't bother to stand. And the third, a younger guy with sharp eyes, leaned back in his chair with a smirk that immediately set my nerves on edge. "Alex, right? Take a seat," the man in the middle said without much enthusiasm. I sat down, trying to steady my hands as I arranged my notes on the table. The woman finally looked up and gave me a flat smile. "So, Alex, we've seen thousands of applicants for this role. Just a heads up, the competition is fierce, and honestly, people like us usually don't expect folks without formal education to get very far around here." Her tone was polite but unmistakably dismissive. I swallowed hard but nodded. "I understand, but I'm confident my work speaks for itself." The younger guy chuckled quietly. "Yeah, about that. We glanced at your resume. Self-taught programmer, no college degree, no internships at big firms. You know, this isn't a hobby club. We need people who can hit the ground running, with experience handling complex systems. Don't take this personally, but honestly, I'm not sure you're cut out for this." It felt like a punch to the gut, but I held my ground. I've built several full-stack applications from scratch, contributed to open-source projects, and even developed a mobile app with thousands of downloads. My skills aren't just theoretical. I tried to keep my voice steady, even though my heart was pounding. The woman raised an eyebrow. "Sure, but can you handle the pressure and scale of a company like Helix? Our projects require teamwork, quick problem-solving, and a deep understanding of software architecture, things you might not have learned in a self-taught environment." Their skepticism was almost palpable. I could see their eyes darting to each other, silently judging. I sensed they were already writing me off before I even had a chance to prove myself. Trying to stay composed, I leaned forward slightly. I've collaborated remotely with developers worldwide. I'm used to rapid iteration and learning on the fly. My portfolio includes code samples, project case studies, and client feedback. I'm ready to adapt and grow with your team. The man in the middle sighed, clearly unimpressed. "Look, Alex, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but this is a cutthroat environment. Our interview process weeds out 90% of applicants right away. Don't get your hopes up. Honestly, you might save yourself a lot of time if you don't bother applying." I felt my stomach twist. It was like they wanted to crush my spirit before I even started. But instead of reacting emotionally, I nodded. "Thank you for your honesty. I'm here to give it my best shot regardless." The woman smirked slightly, tapping her pen on the table. "All right. Let's see if you can back up your talk. We'll start with some technical questions. As they fired off questions about algorithms, data structures, and system design, I did my best to answer clearly and confidently. Some questions caught me off guard, but I stayed calm, explaining my thought process and reasoning. I noticed the younger guy's smirk fade slightly as I walked him through a complex problem I'd solved in a recent project. The woman scribbled notes quickly, occasionally nodding. Still, the overall vibe was far from welcoming. When I mentioned I hadn't attended a formal boot camp or university, the skepticism returned in full force. "How do you keep up with industry standards and best practices without structured learning?" the man asked. "I read extensively, follow leading figures in the field, and participate in coding communities. I also review and contribute to open source code regularly to stay sharp," I replied. He frowned slightly but didn't press further. By the time the interview ended, I felt drained but oddly energized. I hadn't been completely dismissed, a small victory in itself. As I stood to leave, the younger guy gave me a nod that was less mocking this time. "Good luck, Alex. You'll need it." I smiled politely, trying to hide the mix of relief and anxiety swirling inside me. Walking out of that room, I knew this was only the beginning of a tough journey. But deep down, I believed that sometimes the most unconventional paths lead to the most extraordinary destinations. If you're rooting for Alex and want to see how this battle against the odds unfolds, don't forget to subscribe and follow along. Next chapter, things start to heat up as the interview panel digs deeper into Alex's background and challenges every assumption they have. You won't want to miss it. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me. If you're enjoying Alex's story, make sure to hit that subscribe button because things are about to get real intense. So, after that grueling first round, I found myself back in the same cold conference room, this time facing a panel that clearly wasn't shy about questioning everything I'd put on my resume. The moment I sat down, the tone shifted immediately. The woman who had barely looked at me before now leaned forward, fixing me with a sharp gaze. "Alex, your background is unconventional, to say the least. Without formal education, how can we be sure you truly understand the fundamentals? This isn't just about coding, it's about deep theory and applying best practices under pressure." I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady despite the rising tension. "I've spent years studying computer science topics, independently, algorithms, data structures, software design patterns. I regularly challenge myself with coding competitions and contribute to open source projects that require peer review." The man in the middle folded his arms, skepticism written all over his face. "Open source contributions are great, but can you handle working in a team environment with tight deadlines and high stakes?" "Our teams deal with complex problems that demand not just technical skill, but also collaboration and communication." I took a breath. In my previous freelance projects, I coordinated with clients and other developers remotely. I've used tools like Git, Jira, and Slack daily. Communication is key, and I make sure to keep everyone aligned. I'm adaptable and open to feedback. That seemed to catch them off guard for a moment. The younger guy, who had been smirking earlier, leaned forward, folding his hands on the table. "All right, let's talk specifics. Your resume mentions a mobile app you developed. What was the most challenging aspect of that project?" I smiled slightly. This was my chance to shine. The biggest challenge was optimizing the app's performance on lower-end devices. I had to refactor the codebase multiple times, profile resource usage, and implement efficient algorithms. It required balancing user experience with technical constraints. The woman nodded, jotting down notes. "And how did you validate your solutions? Did you work with QA teams or conduct user testing?" Since I was working solo, I set up beta testing groups and gathered feedback directly from users. I also wrote automated tests to catch regressions and ensure stability. I could see their expressions soften just a little. But then the man shifted in his seat, his tone hardening again. "The problem is, Alex, you lack the pedigree we usually expect. No degree, no certifications. How do we know you're not cutting corners or missing critical concepts that formal education covers?" I could feel the weight of that judgment. "I understand the concern," I said calmly. "But I believe practical experience and continuous learning are just as valuable. I'm committed to filling any gaps, and have already started pursuing certifications to formalize my knowledge." The claimed in 5. As the Cond of the Light Raventured mattered marks, the younger guy scoffed lightly. Certificates don't guarantee competence either. We've seen plenty of certified candidates who can't deliver under pressure. What matters is proven ability in a professional environment. That hit close to home. I took a moment before replying. I may not have traditional work experience, but my projects have been used by real users, and I've met deadlines consistently. I'm ready to prove myself if given the chance. The woman exchanged a look with her colleagues, then asked, "Tell us about a time you faced a technical failure or setback. How did you handle it?" I recalled a recent project where a critical bug threatened to delay a release. I found a memory leak that was causing crashes. After isolating the issue, I rewrote the affected module and added comprehensive tests to prevent recurrence. I also communicated transparently with stakeholders about the delay and mitigation plan. They nodded, impressed by the thoroughness. But the man wasn't done. What about handling conflicting opinions within a team? Without experience in corporate culture, how do you navigate disagreements? I believe in active listening and focusing on the best solution rather than personal ego, I replied. In remote collaborations, I've mediated discussions by encouraging data-driven decisions and clear documentation. The younger guy smirked again, though less mockingly this time. You're confident, I'll give you that. But confidence isn't always enough. I met his gaze. No, but combined with skill and willingness to learn, it can take you far. The interviewers then started probing deeper into my technical knowledge, asking about system scalability, microservices architecture, and security practices. Some questions were tricky, and I admitted when I didn't know something, explaining how I would approach finding a solution. I noticed the woman's expression shift from doubt to curiosity as I detailed my problem-solving process and continuous learning habits. Still, the atmosphere was tense. I could tell they were assessing not just my answers but my attitude under scrutiny. The man's voice grew sharper. You realize this role demands long hours, high stress, and constant adaptation. Without a structured background, how will you keep up? I leaned forward, meeting his challenge head-on. I've developed resilience through self-directed learning and freelance work. I'm used to managing my time and priorities without external pressure. I'm motivated by passion, which drives me even in tough situations. The woman gave a slight nod, then glanced at her notes. We appreciate your honesty and thoroughness, Alex. But this is a high bar, and many candidates with traditional backgrounds have already demonstrated their fit. I swallowed the lump in my throat but kept my composure. I understand. I just ask for the opportunity to prove that my unconventional path can be an asset, not a liability. The younger guy leaned back, folding his arms. We'll see. It's rare someone without formal training lasts here, but your determination is noted. As the interview wrapped up, I felt the mix of emotions swirling inside me, frustration from their doubts, but also a quiet pride in holding my own. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be smooth, but I was ready to face their judgments and break through the barriers. Walking out of that room, I realized this wasn't just about technical skills or credentials, it was about challenging preconceived notions and proving that talent can come from unexpected places. If you're rooting for Alex to keep pushing, make sure you subscribe, because next time, something unexpected happens that might just change everything. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, if you're loving this story so far, make sure to hit that subscribe button because what just happened next totally flipped the script. So there I was, sitting in that tense interview room, feeling like I was on the brink of being dismissed yet again, when suddenly, the door opened, and in walked the CEO of Helix Innovations herself, Lisa Chen. Yeah, I know it sounds like something out of a movie, but I swear it happened exactly like this. The interviewers looked up, startled, and you could almost feel the tension crack in the room. Lisa didn't waste a second. She strode over with purpose and addressed the panel directly, her voice calm but authoritative. "Why are you so quick to dismiss this candidate?" she asked, looking right at the woman who had been the harshest. "Have you taken the time to really understand what Alex brings to the table?" The woman stammered, caught off guard. "Well, Lisa, the issue is that Alex lacks the formal education and traditional background we usually rely on to ensure quality and fit." Lisa shook her head slowly, a slight smile playing on her lips. "That's exactly why I wanted to see this interview for myself. Alex's portfolio and contributions to open-source projects show a level of innovation and problem-solving that aligns perfectly with where Helix wants to go. It is not things or one stoles we have the cattled of Nardywis." I sat there, stunned. The CEO was defending me, someone they had just been ready to write off. Lisa turned to me and said warmly, "Alex, I've reviewed your work. Your approach to coding and your unique perspective could bring fresh energy to our team. We need people like you who think outside the box." The room shifted. The interviewers exchanged glances, clearly surprised. The younger guy who had been smirking earlier was suddenly quiet, his smug expression replaced by a look of genuine interest. Lisa then addressed the panel again, her tone firm. "We've been too focused on tradition and pedigree. It's time to rethink what makes a valuable team member here. Alex's innovative projects and self-driven learning are assets, not liabilities." She turned back to me with a nod. "I want you to continue with the interview process. Let's see where this leads." I could barely believe it. The CEO's endorsement completely changed the atmosphere. The interviewers began asking more thoughtful, engaged questions, no longer just trying to trip me up, but genuinely curious about my experience and ideas. Lisa took a seat beside me and asked, "Tell me more about your open-source contributions. How have they influenced your growth as a developer?" I shared how collaborating with diverse developers worldwide had expanded my skills and exposed me to different coding styles and problem-solving methods. I talked about the challenges of maintaining code quality and responding to community feedback. She nodded appreciatively. "That's exactly the kind of collaborative spirit and adaptability we need here." He was not reppin' in the send of pro Trina. Lisa then asked about my vision for the future of software development and how I thought Helix could innovate further. I spoke about the importance of inclusivity in tech, the power of remote collaboration, and leveraging AI to enhance user experience. She smiled and said, "You've clearly thought deeply about these issues. Your fresh perspective is invaluable." The interviewers now seemed genuinely engaged, asking follow-up questions about my technical approach and how I would handle specific projects. The tone was collaborative, not confrontational. After we wrapped up, Lisa pulled me aside briefly. "Alex, I'm impressed. This company has often relied on conventional hiring methods, but your performance today has convinced me that talent comes in many forms. I want you to know that if you continue to show this dedication, there could be a real future for you here." I was overwhelmed not just by her words, but by the sheer validation after all the doubt and skepticism. This was the moment things started to turn around. As I left the building, I felt a surge of hope and determination. Lisa's intervention had not only saved my candidacy, but had started a quiet revolution in that room about what hiring at Helix could look like. If you're rooting for Alex to break through the barriers and prove that unconventional paths can lead to extraordinary opportunities, be sure to subscribe and follow along. The next chapter dives into a candid conversation with Lisa about the value of diverse experiences and the future of innovation. You won't want to miss what happens next. Hey everyone, if you've been following Alex's journey so far, make sure you hit that subscribe button because the next part is where things get really insightful. After that surprising endorsement from Lisa Chen, the CEO of Helix Innovations, I got the chance to have a real heart-to-heart with her about what's missing in the traditional hiring mindset, and why diversity and experience isn't just a nice-to-have, but essential for innovation. We met in a quiet corner of the Helix cafeteria, away from the usual buzz. Lisa started off candidly, "You know, Alex, for years, we've been so focused on credentials and pedigree that we missed out on a lot of raw talent. People like you, who don't fit the usual mold, bring perspectives that challenge our assumptions and push our technology forward." I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and curiosity. It's been tough breaking through those barriers. Sometimes it feels like the system is designed to filter out anyone who doesn't check all the boxes. Lisa smiled thoughtfully. "Exactly. That's a flaw we're actively trying to fix. The tech industry, especially companies like Helix, needs to embrace unconventional backgrounds because innovation thrives on diverse thinking. When everyone comes from the same place, you get echo chambers, and that stifles creativity." I shared how my self-taught path forced me to be resourceful, to seek out communities and mentors online, and to learn rapidly through trial and error. I think that struggle to learn on your own builds resilience and adaptability. Those are qualities you can't always teach in a classroom. She agreed. And that's what we're starting to value more. It's not just about what degree you have on paper, but how you approach problems, how you collaborate, and how you grow. We're rethinking our hiring criteria to make room for that. Lisa explained that Helix was rolling out new initiatives, focused on skills-based assessments and real-world project evaluations, rather than relying solely on resumes and traditional interviews. We want to create pathways for people from different backgrounds to prove themselves, because, honestly, the old model was excluding a lot of potential stars. I told her about the subtle discouragement I'd faced during the interview, the assumptions about my capabilities, because I lacked formal education. It felt like I had to constantly defend my worth, not just my skills. She nodded empathetically. That's a reality many face, and it's something we need to change culturally. It starts with leadership being open-minded and setting an example. That's why I stepped in during your interview. I wanted to challenge those biases head-on. Our conversation turned to how companies can foster inclusive environments, beyond hiring how to support and retain talent once they're inside. Lisa emphasized mentorship programs, continuous learning opportunities, and creating spaces where unconventional thinkers feel valued. I want Helix to be a place where people like you don't just survive, but thrive. Innovation doesn't happen in comfort zones, she said. I reflected on the resilience it took to get here, the long nights of self-study, the uncertainty, the moments of doubt, but also the satisfaction of building something from scratch and proving my abilities through real work. Lisa smiled and said, "Your story is a reminder that success isn't a straight line. It's messy, unpredictable, and often non-linear, but that's where the breakthroughs happen." I left that conversation feeling energized and hopeful. It was clear Helix was beginning to evolve, not just in technology but in mindset, and I was determined to be part of that change. If you're as inspired as I am by this shift and want to see how Alex's journey unfolds in this transforming environment, hit that subscribe button. Next up, the moment Alex receives an unexpected job offer that could change everything. Stay tuned, you won't want to miss it. Hey everyone, if you've been following Alex's journey, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, because the next part is a game changer the moment Alex gets the call that could flip everything upside down. So, after that deep conversation with Lisa Chen, the CEO of Helix Innovations, I was buzzing with hope, but also a bit anxious. Would this really lead somewhere? Days passed, and I kept checking my phone obsessively, waiting for any sign. Then, out of the blue, my phone buzzed with an email notification from Helix's recruiting team. I opened it with trembling hands. The message was clear and simple. "We are pleased to offer you the position of software engineer at Helix Innovations." I read it twice to make sure it wasn't a mistake. It was real. I had landed the job. I felt this overwhelming rush of relief and excitement. All those late nights teaching myself to code, all the rejections and doubts, they had finally paid off. This offer wasn't just a job. It was validation that talent transcends background, that perseverance breaks down closed doors. But even more than the offer itself, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was my chance to prove that unconventional paths could lead to meaningful success. I was determined not just to fit in, but to contribute in a way that would open doors for others like me. When I told my family, their reactions were mixed. Some couldn't quite understand how I'd gotten here without the usual credentials. But I explained that success isn't about the degree on your wall. It's about the skills you build, the passion you bring, and the impact you make. Starting at Helix was both thrilling and challenging. I was surrounded by brilliant minds, many of whom had traditional backgrounds, but I quickly found that my different experiences allowed me to approach problems from fresh angles. My self-taught journey had taught me how to learn independently and adapt quickly, skills that proved invaluable in the fast-paced environment. What struck me most was how the company culture was shifting. The initiatives Lisa spoke about were real. Mentorship programs paired me with senior developers, and there were ongoing workshops to help everyone grow regardless of their background. I felt included, valued, and challenged. Of course, there were moments of doubt and pressure, but each time I faced a hurdle, I reminded myself of how far I'd come. The skepticism from earlier interviews became fuel rather than a weight. I was no longer just trying to prove myself. I was building a future. Looking back, this journey taught me a powerful lesson. Success isn't a straight path laid out by society's expectations. It's messy, filled with detours, setbacks, and moments where you question everything. But it's also deeply rewarding when you stay true to yourself and keep pushing forward. If you're watching this and feeling like you don't fit the mold, remember, Your unique path might be your greatest strength. Keep grinding, keep learning, and don't let anyone tell you where you belong. Thanks for following Alex's story. If you want to see more journeys about breaking barriers and redefining success, hit that subscribe button and share your thoughts in the comments. There's so much more to come, and I can't wait to share it with you. Until next time, keep believing in your potential. If you loved the story, like the video and subscribe.